And welcome back, folks. Well, today we have a candidate for Superior Court Judge. We have Mike Murray with us today. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, nice to have you here today. And we were just talking a bit prior to going on that, as we know, with all the other stuff going on, people have to go down the ballot. And even some of the national candidates have said, hey, you know what? We want you to vote. Make sure to go down your whole ballot. And going for judge, that's usually in the Orange County section towards the bottom. But it's important because for people to make those kind of choices locally are sometimes more important than nationally, right?
Sure, and I think everybody, even if you're not a lawyer or you're not involved in lawsuits, what happens in the court system really does affect everybody. So
Yeah.
it's important, but there's usually not a tremendous amount of information out there about judicial candidates.
No, there's not. Tell me about your background.
I went to college on the East Coast. I went to West Point.
I'm watching on your website here. I'm looking at those photos of you. Yeah.
Great experience. I had been raised to believe that you give back. You give back to your community. You give back to your country. Lots of ways to do that besides the military, but that was a good fit for me. So I went to West Point. It's a scholarship. I got a Bachelor of Science in Engineering in 1986 and then was commissioned as a second lieutenant to the U.S. Army. And I spent about 5.5 years in the Army. I was a scout platoon leader in a reconnaissance platoon and then an executive officer. And I left the Army as a captain to attend law school.
Wow. So where were you stationed in the Army, or where were you?
I was stationed in Mannheim, Germany initially, and then based out of Fort Knox.
All right. Very good. Guarded that gold, right? Is there still gold
Exactly. Yeah, there still is gold there, believe it or not.
So how'd you get to Orange County, and how did you get involved in the legal aspect of this area as well?
When I left the Army, it was specifically to attend law school to be a prosecutor. Criminal law fascinated me. I'd started my life in public service at 18. I wanted to continue to do that. I thought I could achieve both those goals, becoming a lawyer, doing something that I found interesting, and continuing with public service if I did that as a prosecutor. So I went to law school in Northern California at McGeorge. And while I was there, I met my wife, who's an FBI agent, and when she went to the FBI Academy shortly after we got married, she was assigned to the Southern California field office out of Los Angeles. So initially I started out as a prosecutor in Sacramento, and then when my wife was assigned down to LA as a field agent, I followed her down to Southern California. And as Orange County was emerging from the bankruptcy in 1996, I was fortunate enough to get offered a position with Orange County. So I've been with the DA's office in Orange County for 20 years, and the last 14 of those years I've been a homicide prosecutor, and that's what I do currently.
You know, running for judge is a very unique office in that any other office, somebody running can say, here are my ideas, this is what I want to change. But as a judge, you're bound, no matter what your personal views are, of what the law is. And there are certain times, as you know, as a prosecutor, but especially as a judge, that there might be certain decisions that you make are bound by the law, even if personally you're like, I wouldn't do this, but you know what? I've got to do it, right?
Exactly. But you know, it's not that much different than things that I was required to do as a military officer.
Right. Right.
You follow the orders that you're given as long as they're legal, as long as that nobody's asking you to do something that's either illegal or immoral.
Right.
And as a prosecutor, I do the same thing. There are laws that I see that I don't particularly agree with, but as a prosecutor, you're duty-bound to prosecute cases under the law, and the jury ultimately makes the final decision on whether or not a defendant is going to be found guilty. That is a pretty good background to prepare you to be a judge. There's 3 different branches of government, and the judicial branch is not the legislative branch.
Right.
Judges shouldn't be activist judges making law from the bench. If laws need to be changed, and there's always laws that need to be changed, that's what the legislature does based on what the people vote on.
So why do you want to go to the other side of the bench then? What compels you to go from being a prosecutor?
I've loved my career as a prosecutor, but after 20 years of prosecution in Orange County and an additional almost 2 years of prosecution in Sacramento, that's a long time to do the same thing.
Right.
Even if you love it, it's like eating ice cream for 3 meals a day.
Yeah.
You can love it, but you get to a
Right.
point where you're ready to do something else. And I want to continue. My whole life has been about public service. I want to continue in the same vein. I want to continue with public service, but I'm ready to do something a little bit different. And for me, based on my background, what I'm prepared to do is become a judge. That's what my experience lends itself to. And I think after 20 years, I've tried almost every conceivable type of criminal case, and spending the last 14 years in homicide, trying nothing but cold case murders, special circumstance murders, death penalty cases. I'm well prepared and well suited to be a judge.
How long, if you are elected, how long is a term for a judge?
A term and there are two ways to become a judge in California. You can either be elected or appointed.
Okay.
And regardless of how you become a judge on either one of those tracks, it's a 6-year term.
Okay.
And then at the end of the 6-year term, you make a decision as to whether or not you want to continue. And if you do, you run again.
Okay. Now, as you said, with being a prosecutor for so many years, it gives you certainly a unique perspective as far as being a judge. Of course, if you become a judge, you're not going up against another side and trying to prove something. You have to be very balanced and be able to take both sides and be able to look at that prosecutor and say, I'm sorry, this can't be admitted, or you messed up here, or whatever it might be, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But that's also true of anybody who becomes a judge. In order to become a judge, you have to have at least 10 years as a lawyer prior to becoming a judge. And every lawyer advocates for a certain side or position, and you have to step back from that. You really do. And I think it's something that you have to consciously think about, certainly in your first few years as a judge, so that you can step back and just be completely neutral.
Yeah, exactly. On the ballots, quite often, I'm not sure if it's going to be this time or not, quite often they'll say Superior Court Judge, and then it has an office number or things like that. And that's true this time around, am I right?
Yes.
And kind of explain how that works. I think that's where people get confused sometimes. They're not districts, they're...
It's, that there's a lot of things about the process that are confusing, and that's certainly one of them. When there are judges who are up for re-election, you have judges who run their 6-year term, and not all the judges in Orange County are up for re-election at the same time. So they get a list of the judges that are up for election, and that happens every 2 years. And they just number them. So the office or seat number is essentially a number that is only there for the purpose of the election to designate a particular seat or office that is going to be on the ballot for that election. Once the election's over, that number disappears. It's only to track things for the purpose of the election. 20 years ago, the court system in California was broken up to municipal court and superior court, and there were districts, precincts. They did away with that after the consolidation of the court system. All judges are superior court judges, and all judicial positions are countywide. So every position is a countywide position. Anybody who lives anywhere in Orange County can vote.
Okay, yeah, I remember years ago that's how it was.
But it's changed, and that's one of the things that confuses a lot of people.
Yeah, I think it does. So as far as your office, and your particular, how many judges or how many people are up for your office right now? Because I know there's different offices. Some have 2, some have 3.
Right now, there are 4 contested judicial elections in Orange County. My particular seat or office number is 49,
Okay.
and I have 1 opponent.
Okay.
So for my particular race, one of the things that happens in a race where there's only 1 opponent, that race is going to be over in the primary election.
Okay,
and that's
got it.
one of the other things
Okay.
that can be confusing or difficult to make
Exactly.
clear to the voters is if some voters like to wait until the general election.
Right. Exactly.
You wait till the general election, my race is over. And so part of what I've been trying to do for the last 2 years is make sure that people understand that it's critical for a lot of local races that you get out and vote in the primary because the decision is frequently made in the primary.
Right, exactly. And I think that's a good point that you make, because I know there's another office out there. I think there's 3 people, and I think if someone wins a certain amount, then it's over. But otherwise, it goes on to the general. I want to, again, tell you that Mike's website is murrayforjudge.org. And when you go on here, you're going to find out just a lot about him, about his history, pictures of his family. You have a lot of endorsements here. I mean, so many, I'm still scrolling. I mean, it's really quite amazing when I go up and down the list here. There's got to be 200 people here that are endorsing you, right? It must be from years of great service and just people respecting you.
I hope that's what it's from.
Yeah.
I spent a long time thinking about my decision to run, and when I did, I spent quite a bit of time talking to judges, community leaders, victims' rights groups that I've worked with over the years, business people, local politicians, and I wanted input from all of those people, and I sought support from each of those groups, and I feel like I've been able to get pretty good broad-based support for my campaign.
All right, very good. What's the office number again?
The office number is 49. 49.
All right, and remember, coming up, it may be the primary for many things, but it is the general for this gentleman, right? And the people running for your, meaning that is...
Actually, it's the primary for mine.
Oh, that's right, yes.
Because on June 7th, my race will be over.
And if you want to go to his website, murrayforjudge.org. Thank you for coming on today. Good luck to you.
Thank you very much.
And we'll be right back. No, what I meant is...